Where there's thunder, there's lightning. John Nada. Just a quick video to kind of update you on my comings and goings. Here recently, I have been in the process of buying a house. This will be the first house that I've ever purchased. And so up until this point, I've lived in, dorms and barracks and apartments. So I'm pretty excited about the prospects of what this is going to bring and what this is going to mean. And it's reasonably enough priced that it's actually not going to be much more on the monthly payment than what I'm currently expending on an apartment. And so I'm pretty excited about that and looking forward to home ownership. So it's a pretty big step in that direction. The year 2020 seemingly has been kind of a bust. Here we are, it's almost June, and we're halfway through the year here, and we're still kind of dealing with the lockdown and everything else in certain parts of the country and indeed the world. But this year has actually been decent for me in spite of some of the shortcomings otherwise, in terms of getting the house and getting a promotion that I've been wanting for about 1.5 or 2 years. And also on that front, I weighed myself the other morning and I'm down 10 pounds. So I'm headed in the right direction there in terms of my weight loss goals and my health and all that sort of stuff. So, and I'll be heading to the gym here a little while later to continue. A lot of getting back into weight loss and just changing your diet and exercising and all that kind of stuff has kind of brought me back into the motivation videos and stuff that you can find on YouTube. And one particular speaker, Les Brown, and if you've never checked out Les Brown stuff, it's worth taking a look at. And so those were some things, and his speeches and some of his advice and things really got me through a rough time a couple of years ago, and in a sense, gave me a lot of the internal strength to pursue my goals and to pursue making it to where I wanted to make it in life. And that's some of what this channel has been about. I hope for many of you is that you have been given the idea that given enough internal strength and enough self-belief, you can accomplish anything. And so that kind of brings me to another point. Many people kind of view, especially when you tell people you're single or people find out you're single or whatever, they immediately, especially when you reach a certain age, they want to hook you up with everybody because they think that you're missing out on that you're missing out on something, that you're just not going to reach your peak happiness without somebody in your life. And I was talking to somebody the other day whom I don't know very well, and they just kind of brought it up. And so they were immediately trying to think of people that they could hook me up with, and they kept throwing out some of these. So these were older women, which, I mean, older, younger doesn't really matter. AWOLT regardless. So, but one of the prospective people was like, mid to late 40s, had already been married twice. It's just like, yeah, I'm not really interested in the 25-year-old that's never been married and has never had kids, much less the 40-something-year-old that's already got 2 divorces under the belt and, maybe 2 or 3 kids out there somewhere. But people can't fathom the idea that somebody could be happy with just being with themselves and being who they want to be. And it's because they can't fathom being alone because of the fear of, I guess, being alone. But what I think a lot of MGTOW people understand, which most everyday people don't, is anytime you're in a relationship with somebody, you're giving something up. They think that by being single, you are missing out on something or your life just isn't as good as it could be. But regardless of which disposition you're in, you're giving something up. I mean, life is a lot about give and take. But when you're in a relationship with somebody, you are most certainly giving something up. And you're giving something up in a more intrusive way. And you're tying everything that you'll do, everything that you are, and everything that you'll be to this other person. And when that inevitably fails, because it will, more than likely, so the scenarios are, it's either going to fail and falter, or you will maintain this relationship, but it'll be this uneasy ceasefire, it'll be this uneasy peace, and things could just fly loose at any moment. It's like a weak covalent bond or something. And even the successful relationships, there's had to have been so much given up and so much compromise that both people within it, but more specifically the guy within it, is just a battered and broken man just browbeaten into submission. And so when you understand that, once you understand that, the desire for a relationship just kind of dissipates. Now, we all desire the idealized relationship that we once thought was possible in our younger days, the relationships that we were told we would have. And so, but when the realization becomes that those things never existed, then it's like, oh, okay, well, far too many people are willing to give up their freedom for supposed security. And in effect, they're saying, well, I'd rather be enslaved than be alone. They're afraid to be with themselves and their own thoughts, and they're afraid to have, the skies be the limit and everything opened up before them. So they would choose, rather than to have a master that is going to tell them what to do, where to be, and how to do it. And, the accusation is always levied against MGTOW that, well, we're just bitter. We're bitter about women. We're bitter about relationships. Some of us have had bad marriages. Some of us have had bad dating relationships, and so on and so forth. And, it never really made sense to me. But then the thought came to mind the other day that at some point in time, as a child, I must have touched a hot stove. And so I touched the hot stove and realized that, man, that hurts. I probably shouldn't do that. That was a negative experience. I probably should amend my behavior in the future so that I don't do that again. Now, that's a pretty common analogy for a lot of things. It's a pretty common, allegory, if you will. But here's the thing. You touch the hot stove when you're young. You figure out, wow, that's hot. That's painful. Let's not do that again, because it's an unpleasant experience. Now, having said that and having done that, as I'm sure we all have at some point, I'm not bitter about hot stoves. I have no ill will, bitterness, or anything towards hot stoves. The stove does what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to heat up so you can cook food. But there's no bitterness about having been burned by it in the past. There's simply a learning, a wisdom. And you're just kind of ignorant if you experience something and don't learn anything from it, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. I mean, that's kind of the mark of somebody that has a little bit of knowledge and wisdom, is that as they go through life, they attain information, they attain knowledge, and use that information and that knowledge as an input into how they operate and experience the world around them. So only a fool would touch a hot stove and keep touching a hot stove year in and year out, thinking that somehow things are going to be different, because the thing is that all stoves are like that. And so I don't know, it was just kind of a funny little thought that popped into my head the other day, because knowing female nature and knowing how relationships, especially knowing the legal climate of today's marriage and family, again, when you see countless people around you and hear countless stories of the divorces that people have gone through, and the heartache and the pain and the loss of wealth and the loss of peace and the loss of freedom, how could your interaction with those things be anything less than negative? I mean, why would you look upon those things as fond and positive when there seems to be such an opposite of that going on? And even then, whether you know anybody personally that's been through a divorce, or whether you have personally been affected yourself by a divorce, be it as a child or as a husband that has been divorced, the simple fact of the matter remains is that the legal system is what it is, and it's stacked against you in such a way that the most likely outcome, should things not work out, is going to be a negative outcome. So we hear it said many times, the only winning move is to not play the game at all. And that seems pretty reasonable to me. Another thing that had been kind of a thought here lately. This is a truth that I've learned time and time again. This is a thing that I've experienced before. And so as time goes on, as you experience things, like I said, you get that knowledge and information. And then it influences, how you move in the world. But the thing is that the people that want to walk out of your life, let them walk out. Because at the end of the day, I truly believe, and have truly experienced it myself, if you have enough self-strength, enough self-awareness, and enough self-belief, you can accomplish just about anything. Now, that's not to say that you don't need supporters, or that supporters are bad, but whether you have supporters or not, if you have those things in place, and you really want to accomplish something, a dream, a goal, whatever it may be, it is not and never dependent on anyone else. It's nice to have supporters. It's nice to have people along the way that can certainly help, but the outcome is not determined by them. And so I've always noticed in my friendships, relationships, so on and so forth, I've always been the one that try to salvage things, try to work things out, try to exhaust all resources to try to make amends. If we can't be friends, let's make amends. Or if we can't have a relationship, let's make amends. And so I remember several years ago, two different girls that I had dated, the relationships didn't end in the most amicable of ways. And so I remember I had written letters, in each instance to the girl. And I mean, these were like probably 4 or 5 pages or more, trying to work things out, not necessarily date them, but to try to end things, on a positive note, a peaceful note, an amicable note. And mind you, this is when I was, pretty young and still kind of in the scent mindset. And the thing that I noticed is that, I had sat down and I had penned these well thought out, thoughtful, heartfelt prose to these people. And in neither instance did I ever receive a letter back, or even really so much as any kind of real comment on it. Because I'd ended up talking to them, at a later time, and they kind of mentioned the letter, and oh yeah, that was nice or whatever. Don't be that person that fights and fusses and is anxious and is all tore up about the people coming and going, whether it's a friend or an ex-girlfriend or whatever the case may be. Because at the end of the day, if people want to be your friend, or if people really care about you, if they care one iota about you, they will go out of their way to repair, mend, or whatever needs to be repaired or mended. And so I say all that to say, it's better to go your own way than to go somebody else's way. So go your own way or don't. The choice is yours.